Welcome. It's 1:03. I know I usually hit 1 o'clock on the nose, everyone, but today I was, technologically challenged. But it is 1 o'clock. It is Wednesday, and this is Chattin with CHAP. And you can see I'm not alone today. I am Ginger Wade, and I am here with 3 evaluators who are going to share some amazing information with you. So let's introduce everybody. Let's start with Courtney. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Courtney Dunlap. I am a mom to 7. I've been homeschooling for about 26 years and evaluating for about the same as well.
Okay, fabulous. And Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Little. I live in Lancaster and I have 5 kids at home. I homeschool 4 of them currently, and this is my 3rd year doing evaluations.
Fabulous. And Barb.
Hi, I'm Barb Bideman. I actually live in the Pittsburgh area. I homeschooled my 2 sons all the way through. One is a junior in college right now, and the other one's working on a PhD in computer science.
Awesome. Evaluators. There have been many questions all over Facebook land on evaluators and evaluations and what on earth. And there's so many more homeschoolers out there this year. So we are sharing some information today about evaluators. So before I jump into some questions for our evaluators, I just wanted to mention to all of you out there, an evaluator is either a PA certified teacher, you can correct me if I'm wrong, ladies, a licensed clinical psychologist, or someone you choose, you can write a letter to the superintendent to be your evaluator. Say, like, it could be me. I'm not a teacher, I'm not a psychologist, but I've homeschooled kids for a bunch of years. So I would technically have graded for 2 years at each grade level. So I could be an evaluator if I chose to. So the PA certified teacher, it could be public, could be private. And you actually do not have to have an up-to-date certificate according to, is it Act? What's the Act? 34, 42?
48.
48. I knew it was something like that. So yeah, your certificate does not need to be current. So that's great news. Did I get that right, ladies? Does that sound right? Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. So we are going to jump into a bunch of questions we have. And if any other questions come up, we are going to have a part 2 episode of this next week to talk about some frequently asked questions. So right now we're just going to talk to you pretty much about how an evaluation flows, what it looks like, what's the evaluator's job, and then next week we'll talk about some frequently asked questions. So if some questions come up, please comment below or get over to chaponline.com and share your question on our contact form. Okay, so let's get started. Our first question today is, what is the role of an evaluator? Like, why do we have an evaluator? So which of you ladies would like to tackle that first? Don't all jump at once. Okay, Barb, tell us what the purpose is of an evaluator. Why do we have evaluators?
So basically, you're supposed to have an evaluator because the law requires it. And the evaluator is just there to make sure that you complied with the law. So we're just kind of, in my case, I'm just checking things off that I interview the child because that's part of what's required in the law. I review the portfolio samples and the log, which is a list of reading materials used made contemporaneously with instruction. That you did your days, you're supposed to do 180 days. So I just usually will ask. And most of the time people aren't quite done yet because you don't have to have completed your 180 days before you have your evaluation. And somebody asked about that on one of the Facebook groups, and I responded that part of the reason for that is if we waited till everybody was done with their 180 days, there's no way we could get all the evaluations done.
Yeah.
So standardized tests for grades 3, 5, and 8 are required, and the evaluator is the only person that's going to see those test results besides the parents themselves. So so we need to attest that we've seen those, and that the student is instructed in the required subjects and has demonstrated sustained progress in the overall program. And so most of that is like just directly wording that comes from the law. So That's what we're
Yes.
not.
So I think it's important to realize out there, mamas, and we may talk about this more later, that our job isn't to make sure your child is progressing at a certain rate or has a certain grade or has a certain ability or they're not grading for you. They're just making sure you're complying with the law, which is different. Anything else, Courtney or Amy, that you would want to share on that?
Yeah, I mean, I just tell moms or families, I'm not evaluating your homeschool. I'm not evaluating you as a teacher or your child as a learner. Like, that's your responsibility as the parent. The homeschool parent is to be educating your kids. Mm-hmm. That's on you. I'm just checking to see that all the things are checked off that the law requires. So
mm-hmm. We're not
usually sets parents at ease.
Yeah. We're not passing the children on to the next grade level. That's not mm-hmm. our decision to make. Mm-hmm. I'll have parents ask me, how are my kids doing? And I say to the parent, how do you feel as though your children are doing? Mm-hmm. It's not up to me to make that determination.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's important things to be aware of, what the role of the evaluator is there. Okay, so our next question is, what do you want someone to bring along to an evaluation? Go ahead, Courtney, why don't you tackle that one?
So I need to see a portfolio. Mm-hmm. And in that portfolio, I need to see samples of each subject required by law. I need to see progress. So I need to see something from the beginning, middle, and end of the school year. By law, in that portfolio needs to be the log, which is the list of books read. I don't care how that comes to me. I don't care how that portfolio looks. It can be a 3-ring binder. It can be a box with papers in it. It can be a clothes basket. It can be anything. That's just what I need to see. Some kids will bring projects, and that's fine. Art projects, pictures. I just need to see progress in each subject required by law.
So the handy thing is, since we don't have to give our portfolios into the school district anymore, you don't necessarily need to make a 3-ring binder.
Right.
Yes, so that's handy. Anything else anyone wants to add to that?
Well, for me personally, I don't really want to see a laundry basket. So I would really prefer to just see a few samples from each subject. And as Courtney was saying, like from the beginning, middle, end of the year. So yeah, I would really like it if it were just kind of a stack of papers that you could staple together even. But I do have some people that do like these beautiful memory books, and I'm okay with that. We used to say, don't do that because you're setting a precedence, because they had to be turned into the district. Mm-hmm. But now that they don't have to be turned in, I say, whatever you want to keep to help you remember this year, that's all right. You can show it to me as long as it shows sustained progress. That's all I need. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one of the really important things to remember to bring is your children, right? We talked about that yesterday. Make sure your children come along. Anything else, Amy, you might want to throw in there? Or?
I had a parent show up to an evaluation a couple of weeks ago with a 6-ring binder, like a 6-inch binder.
Oh,
stuff. And I said, please don't do this again for each of our kids. I was like, please don't do this again. It's too much. I don't have time to do that for each child. Like, it's too much and it's not necessary. So if you want to have a 6-ring binder or a 6-inch binder for each kid to keep for the years, that's fine, but pull out a sampling for me, because you don't need all that for me to do my job. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's something to keep in mind, because it's hard. We do a lot of work throughout the year, and it seems like, my kids do a lot of math drill into the trash can. My 6-year-old yesterday was like, Mom, why are all these math papers in the trash can? Because I need to keep them. You did them. Okay. All right, what do you expect from homeschool families with their academic progress? So that's interesting, when the evaluator's role is to make sure you're complying with the law. There is that one part in the end that Barb had read to us. So how does this play in there? Amy, do you want to tackle that first, or?
Yeah, so I get this question a lot from people. And I just tell them, like, if at the beginning of the year, they're doing simple addition in math, and by the end of the year, they're introducing multiplication, that to me shows progress. So progressing through the skills for each subject. Same thing for writing. If I'm looking at a writing sample from the beginning of the year and it shows, just a couple simple sentences, and then by the end of the year, they're doing 3 paragraphs, like that's showing progress through that subject. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, is just like a progression of skills or difficulty. To me, that shows progress. So it's kind of a judgment call, I guess, based on what they show us, because like the parents are choosing the samples. So we're just kind of going from that to show progress. But that can also be, progress, I feel like, is any new learning that has happened that year is progress. So whether it's a list of activities that they've done together as a family, sorry, my kids are in here now. Whether it's a list of activities the kids have done together, or field trips that they've done, or, a paragraph written by a parent that shows what they've covered in a particular subject, that also can be proof of progress made. So there's a lot of different ways to show progress.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to that?
I just wanted to mention that, like, it looks different for every family. And I think Amy has hit on that for sure. But, it's not like I expect every second grader to do a certain amount and cover a certain amount during the year or something like that. That's not what evaluators do. We're just looking for progress. So one second grader's progress may look very different than that of another second grader. So people just need to keep that in mind. Like, don't worry that, I need to make sure I have exactly what this evaluator wants to see. Mm-hmm. To see progress.
Yeah, I think that's really tricky because, public schools all by grade, age grade, they go together automatically no matter what. And that's just not true for all learners. Everyone's different. So yeah, it's challenging to focus on progress and our children just getting better where they are at in their own lives versus, what everybody else is saying, oh, this is what normal is. Or, those of us who were public schooled and that's what we went through. So we're trying to retrain our brain to understand what that means, progress. So anything else you want to add to that, Courtney?
I don't think so. I was just thinking about the special needs child in this case. And I fall back to that definition of progress. There's no place that says what that progress means. It's just they're progressing. And as parents, we know this already, that kids do not progress in incremental stages. 1 year, it could be very little progress. And then all of a sudden the next year, they are just booming. And that's okay. And so even with a special needs child that may need a lot longer to cover more simple concepts, that's okay. Yeah. So it's important. It's important to remember it's progress. Don't stress yourselves out, mamas. Okay, next question. So this might seem like a silly question, but I think it's something that people wonder. Is this going to be like a friendly thing, or is it going to be like the rigid, I'm going in for inspection, how can the parents prepare mentally? Like, what could they expect? Let's see, who wants to take that first? I don't care. Barb?
Well, it did kind of remind me when you're talking about the role of the evaluator, one of the things that I didn't mention is that I kind of feel like the evaluator should be a cheerleader to encourage the parents, because a lot of times parents do come in feeling very down, like, that they haven't done everything they were supposed to do this year, or everything they wanted to do this year, or, it's just hard. And I think that it's helpful if that meeting is a very friendly experience and the evaluator is saying, you're doing a great job, both to the child and to the parent. And just, encouraging them in all the good things that you see, because it's nice to be the evaluator because you do get to see all the great things that have happened. And I think sometimes parents feel encouraged when they make those portfolios because they're like, oh, wait, we actually did do something this year. But sometimes, like I said, they just feel overwhelmed and they're tired because they spent way too long. Like, don't stay up late making your portfolio. I have people that say, oh, I was up till 3 a.m. doing the portfolio. I'm like, what are you doing? Don't do that. So anyway, yeah. So hopefully it's very friendly, and the evaluator really is kind of a cheerleader to encourage, because we all need support as homeschool parents. It's hard.
Yeah, for sure. Any of you other ladies, Courtney or Amy, on the experience?
I tell my families it's a time of celebration. I am there saying you did a great job. As a family, and I'm not there to critique, judge, test. I'm there to say you did great things this year.
I feel the same way. I just try to set their minds at ease. The first year, I think, especially the parents come in and they're super nervous and anxious about it, and then once they've been through it once, it's like, oh, okay, it's no big deal. Like, it's just a thing we have to do, and it marks the end of our year, and then we can go out and go for Ritas or whatever afterwards to celebrate.
Lots of people go out for ice cream, so
yes,
yeah. So mamas out there or daddies or whoever's watching, don't approach the evaluation with fear and trepidation. It's not a place of inspection, or it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And my evaluator has always said, man, I just love seeing what you've done, and you've done a lot. And my mom helps too. And she said, I love seeing that your mom helps. And so it's just really cool, because I don't think I know a homeschool mom who says, oh, I love everything I'm doing. I'm just doing the best of everything. Like, I don't know a homeschool mom like that. We all are like, I'm messing up on something, or there's a gap somewhere. We're all very concerned because we love our children and we want them to be prepared the best that they can be. But the cool thing is to keep in mind that Dee and I have talked about before in Chat with CHAP is God can work through the gaps, and you're not going to mess up his plan for your kids. So just keep moving. And the evaluator is not a wall to get over, so you can continue on. They're a helper, like Barb said, a cheerleader along the way. So that's an important distinction in your mind to remember. Okay, so moving on, the next one's kind of like a double question. It says, how does an evaluation flow? Like, what does the process look like when someone comes to your house? And like, so what are your best practices? What do you do as you are doing that evaluation? So like Barb talked earlier about what the evaluator's job is, what their role is, but like, how does it look when you guys are actually doing it? So who wants to tackle that first? Do you want to go ahead, Courtney?
Sure. So this year, started last year, I was offering Zoom evaluations as well. So the Zoom evaluation looks very different than the in-person evaluation. Typically with the in-person evaluation, I do it out of my home because that's just what works for me and my family. So they come in, it's done out of my living room, and typically the children will show me their work. I ask questions like, what is your favorite book? What was your favorite activity this year? Or if maybe they're showing me an art project and I'll say, this really looks like an amazing project. Can you tell me about it? And it just sparks some conversation. And then with a Zoom evaluation, it's a little bit more challenging. For elementary students, I will tell the parents that they have a choice with how they want to show me the work. They can take pictures and email them to me or message me. They can create a Google Docs. I've had some parents create a private Facebook group, and it's only the parent and myself that are in this group, and that's how I view the material. Sometimes I view it ahead of time if I have time, or if the parent prepared it in enough time, and sometimes it's while I have them on Zoom. Some kids, they just hold up their paper to the camera and I look at it that way. And then I ask questions as well, the same as in person, what their favorite subject was, just gentle conversation.
Gentle conversation, that's important, because it's not like an interrogation, right? It's not like a quiz.
It is not. And I have had students that were very uncomfortable and on Zoom. And so they don't sit in front of the camera. They sit next to mom on the floor or on a chair off to the corner. And I still talk to them and try to engage them. And eventually, maybe they'll come into view of the camera. That is okay too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, Amy, do you want to share what your process looks like?
Yeah, so in nice weather, I like to actually go to a park and I can schedule a whole bunch of evaluations in a row at the park so the kids can run around. The ones that aren't involved directly in the evaluation can run around and play while I quickly meet with the parents and go over my checklist, because I just go through and check everything off that is required by law for me to look for. And then just talk briefly with the student, do my little interview. So it could be pretty quick. That way I can run through quite a few evaluations in a short period of time. That way, especially for parents who are doing, 4 or 5 kids, it's a great way to do that and not have them running all through my house or whatever. So yeah, I am doing them in person at my house as well, if people are comfortable doing that, and then offering virtual evaluations. And I'm still learning what that's going to look like, because I haven't done this before. So I'm learning from these ladies too, learning as I go.
Okay, Barb?
So I use Sign Up Genius to have people sign up for their evaluations, and I just have 15-minute time slots that they sign up for. So this year I have 6 different signups, because I have 3 for virtual. I just do them by month: April, May, June, and 3 for in-person. And so the virtual ones will all be on Zoom this year, because Sign Up Genius is working with Zoom. So that's kind of nice. And so anyway, I'm just asking people to either hold things up to the camera or share their screen with me to show me their samples. They don't need to send them to me ahead of time. The only thing that's a little bit different is like with students who are graduating and want to use the diploma that comes from the Pennsylvania Department of Education for homeschoolers, they need to show me a transcript. So just because I need to make sure that they've done the 15 credits that are required for that diploma or more. And then other than that, I do them at my house. And so people come at their time to my house, and I actually have an addition on my house, so that it has its own door and everything, so they can just come in there. And then I also am planning to do them in my front yard at a picnic table. And then I have a back patio too. So I'll also have that option. So people are just supposed to let me know, like in the comments, if they have a preference as to where to do it. And I just, they show me their portfolio if they're there in person, and I look through that. And I usually do ask the child their favorite subject and their favorite book. And that's my interview. Some kids like to talk and want to tell you about their portfolio. Some kids don't want to say anything. And so that's my way to at least do some sort of interview without hopefully being too scary. But anyway, yeah, so I try to schedule 15 minutes a piece. And, I was saying earlier when we were talking that if you have like 4 children, then that's an hour right there, which is usually plenty of time. So, and then also, like, if people have other questions, then they know that they can call me, email me, or come to a meeting that the support group is having, or watch a video that I have on YouTube or something like that as well. Because I know 15 minutes is a short time, so there isn't time to have a lot of chit chat and, answer a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so everybody has their different process. It looks a little bit different here for everybody. And so when you're hunting for an evaluator, it is important to talk to them, ask them questions. They're not going to be upset if you ask them questions that, what would you like us to bring, or what's this going to look like, or what should I expect? How long is it going to be? Because everybody handles it differently. I think this year, with having so many homeschoolers, I think the evaluations, even for people who might have had longer evaluations, might shrink a little, because I guess there's enough evaluators for the number of homeschoolers out there, but I don't know. Amy's going, so yeah, it might be shorter evaluations this year just because of that reason. So it's not a scary process, and you shouldn't ever feel like put on the spot. Like your kids shouldn't feel put on the spot or interrogated, or you know, your evaluator is not there to quiz you to make sure you know what happened in the year 1776. You know, it's not stuff like that. It's like a general interview. So that can put your heart at ease, hopefully. So we are going to move on to the next question. We have 2 more questions. The next one is, what do you think are best practices for families who are coming to you for an evaluation? So like, how can they prepare? And keep in mind that this could be different from evaluator to evaluator, but do you ladies have any like general suggestions? I mean, pretty much any evaluator is going to want you to be prepared in this way. And I think you've touched on it mostly with these other questions, but maybe briefly share a thought there. And if who wants to tackle it, and then if anything else needs added to it, we can do that. Does anyone?
I can go.
Go ahead, Amy.
I provide a portfolio guide for potential clients. So I send that out to everybody who is scheduling an evaluation with me, just so that they kind of know what needs to be included in the portfolio. And that's just taken directly from the law, what the law requires. So just have a checklist, like 180 days, you know, and then your standardized tests, if it applies for the grade level that your child's in. And then, you know, the different subject areas and stuff like that. So I just have a checklist so they know, like, they can go through as they're putting their portfolio together, finding samples and check off those things themselves. And then when I do the portfolio, or when I do the evaluation, then I just go through and check that off again, just for my own reference. What was the original question? How do I?
Well, it just says, what do you think are best practices for families who are coming to you for an evaluation? Like, how should they prepare?
So I know our families, they just want to know what to bring. So that's why I provide the portfolio guide. And then, yeah, just bring a good attitude and bring your kid with you, obviously. It's being evaluated, right? It's helpful. And then just just share what you're doing in your homeschool. Because I personally like to learn what everybody else is doing. Like, sometimes I get ideas from my families that I interview. So just understand that you're not grilling you or approving you as a homeschool parent. Like, so don't be afraid of us. We're on your side.
Yeah.
We're still here to serve you. So
yeah. That's important to know. Anything else, Barb or Courtney, you think might be helpful there? Or does that pretty much cover it?
It pretty much covers it. The only thing that I was thinking for high schoolers, now I probably do things a little differently with the high school level, just because of the nature of my families. The majority of my families do use a diploma program. And I do offer keeping a transcript for all of my families. I'm visual. It helps me. I don't do it if a family doesn't want me to do that, but it is something that I offer to my families, and most of them do want that. So for a family that has high school students, to think through the extra things that the kids do that can also be credits. The courses that they do, that's easy. But if they are doing teaching themselves ukulele using YouTube, documenting that time is helpful. So that way, during the evaluation, I don't have to pull it out of the parent and the student. They're already thinking along that way.
Yeah. Those are good thoughts. Anything else, Barb? We cover it?
I don't think so. I think that pretty much covered everything.
Yeah. Okay. So the last question I have here for today is, what do you supply the family after the evaluation is done? So they came, they brought their portfolio and whatever projects they wanted to show you, and you had your interviews and chats, and yay, it's all done. What happens at the end? So Barb, do you want to do that first?
Sure. So I give them a form. That's what I was reading off of in the beginning, that I have it titled Evaluation of Home Educational Progress. And it's dated so that the school district will know when it took place. I address mine to the specific superintendent of the school district, because that's the person that's in charge of homeschoolers. I have information about my credentials in there just because I've gotten too many calls asking about that. So I have the TIMS website where they can go and look and see that I'm certified, and my certificate happens to be active as well. So anyway, they can see all that. I also have my PPID on there. I know some people say you shouldn't put it on there because not everybody needs to have it in order to do evaluations. Like if you, Ginger, were approved by a school district, you have to have that, obviously. But again, it just makes it easier for me not to have to worry about, people wondering about my credentials. So I also so I have my checklist of those things that I was reading through that are required as far as the law is concerned. And I also put the child's name actually in the letter or the form, whatever you want to call it, so that they have that as well. And then it's the parents' responsibility. So I either give that to them if they're there in person, I check everything off and sign it, or if they're doing it online, I send it as a PDF like that same day, but sometime later, depending on like how many evaluations I'm doing in a row. So when I have a chance, I do that. And then that way they can print it out and take it, or I know some schools even let you email things to them. So anyway, but the thing that I suggest is that they also, if they're going to keep homeschooling, that they turn in their affidavit and objectives for the next year, whatever information they're turning in, at the same time that they turn in their evaluation letter, because that needs to be in by June 30th. The other materials, the affidavit and the objectives, don't have to be until August 1st, but August 1st feels like the middle of the summer to me. And so it's hard to remember at that point, oh no, I need to get this stuff into the school district for next year. So I think it's easier if you just turn it all in at the same time. And a lot of people just mail it. I usually say do that return receipt requested so that you can know at least that they received it. And you have something to say, if they call you and say, oh, you didn't turn this in. Well, I actually have this receipt because I did. And sometimes they'll even go look for it if that happens. But anyway, yeah, so that's pretty much it. The important thing to remember is that it's the parent's responsibility to turn in that form that the evaluator gives them.
Yeah. So you want to make copies of everything, your affidavit, your objectives, your evaluation. And I do the same thing. I take everything in by the end of June, one trip to the school, done. Don't have to come back for another year. So, but just make sure you have copies of everything in your files at home, just to make sure that you know that you sent it in. And I myself might even write the date in the corner that I dropped it off so that, I know when things happened. Does any of you ladies want to share anything different there? Does it sound pretty much like what Barb does with your form, kind of check things off? And
I do the same thing Barb does, almost exactly. So, but I just wanted to reiterate, yes, make copies, get a receipt. If you can drop it off in person, that's better, because then you have direct contact with somebody, they can give you a receipt. Because our school district actually lost my paperwork. And so I was trying to get my son tested for something at the school district, and they were like, we have no record of you. And I was like, well, I have proof. So I was really glad I did make those copies and get a receipt for my certified letter, because of COVID, everything, like, there was nobody in the office. So they said, just mail it in. But then for some reason, it must have gotten misplaced somewhere during the summer. And so they had no record of my own paperwork. So I live and learn, I guess, right?
Yeah, there it is. Courtney, anything else to add, or is that wrapping up?
Sometimes at the evaluation, if it is a student that has an IEP, if the parent gives me the objectives for the next year at that time, then I will send them home along with the approval letter as well.
Yeah, so that's something we didn't talk about much today. Courtney is an evaluator who is able to sign off on the IEP the objectives for a child with an IEP. For those of you who are familiar with what that means. So when we were discussing things before we got started, we were talking about evaluations for children who have IEPs, and a lot of people wonder, is it the same process? Does it look different? So do you want to share any thoughts on that, Courtney?
Sure. So if your child has an IEP, Your objectives need to be approved by a special education evaluator or a school psychologist. After that is done, the evaluation process looks exactly the same as any other student. And an evaluator that is not special education certified or school psychologist can do the evaluation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's important to know. You don't need, like, any evaluator can evaluate your child if your child has an IEP. That's okay. It's the signing off of the objectives that needs someone with a special education what is it, degree? I don't want to say that wrong.
I'm certified in special education.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. So it's the objectives part at the beginning of the school year. So the evaluation can be done by anyone, and actually the evaluation looks the same. So that's important for you guys all to know. Where things start to get different maybe is testing, because you can ask for untimed, you can ask for certain things to help your child through the testing process, and maybe even different what is the word I want? It starts with a C.
Accommodations?
Yes, accommodation had a C in it. Accommodations for testing, but that's not the topic of our show at the moment. So, so evaluations just the same. So rest at ease, mamas. So I think that pretty much wraps us up for.
Can I mention one more thing?
Yes, I wanted to ask if you girls had anything else to say.
Well, with the what do you supply for the evaluation once it's done?
Yeah.
If parents have a graduating senior, I ask them to bring the diploma from the PDE if they want that. So, so they should print it out, because a lot of times they want to print it out on nicer paper or something like that. And so I ask them to bring that, and then I sign it at the evaluation after I've looked at the transcript, just to make sure that they have all the credits that they need for that. But that is something that they bring, and then I just send it home with them right away. I sign it right there. But yeah, I don't print that out myself. I have them bring it.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did last year. Yeah, I had it printed out at the UPS store or something on nice cardstock or something, and then took it along. And yeah. So yes, if you're issuing your own PDE diploma, take that along to your evaluation for your senior, and that'll all be wrapped up in one nice little package and done. Yay. So I did want to mention, I didn't mention it before, everyone should read the homeschool law. We all go to groups here and groups there, and my friend this and co-op that and whatever, and get what everybody else says the law says. Go read it. And it's actually not too hard to read. I know I don't like legalese, but we have it out on homeschoolpennsylvania.org, the law in its entirety, and you can just read it straight through. There's actually a page out there too on becoming an evaluator, and there's another page on evaluators, evaluations. So you can go out, read what's out there. We have videos out there to explain some of the things. And keep in mind too, mamas out there and supervisors, the law is general. The law is general. If you read it and see what's in there, you will be like, oh, like it doesn't say biology and chemistry. It doesn't say, you know, grade levels. It doesn't say, it's really general. So there is a lot of flexibility in our homeschool law. So keep that in mind. And that applies as you're going to see your evaluator too. They're not looking for second grade reading or whatever, you know, that's not there. So rest assured, it's really great. There's a lot of freedom in that. Winner. And ladies, I am so glad you came on with us. That it was really great to have you. And I think we're going to do it again next week, right? At least not sure that Amy can get on, but I think Courtney and Barb, we'll see what we can do. And we're going to touch on some frequently asked questions that our evaluator friends here get, and we've been seeing on Facebook. So we will talk a little bit more next week. Okay. Thank you, ladies. I'm so glad you were here with us, and we will be back next Wednesday at 1. And that's a wrap. Bye.